Hello and welcome to another episode of Work 2.0, the podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Wells, and this is where we are, Work 2.0 on the road. And today I'm at Work Human Forum, London, and we're talking as usual about AI, power, and the future of work. Today I'm with Susan David. She is a psychologist and author. And today we're here to talk about yes, the future of work, but how the workforce is responding to the future. You know, at the forum today, one of the key themes is building trust and resilience. And one of the conversations that's been had with, Rachel and also the keynote speaker, Eric Mosley, with all these changes happening, the key thing that holds people together in these organizations is trust, is that sense of psychological safety. And it's something I also spoke with Kiana Schmeisel about this morning. She said the same thing. So I'm really keen to hear from you about this. That's why I'm so excited to really kind of talk with you and have this discussion. One of the things I wanted to talk about with you is, as we know, a lot of organizations are racing to be AI native and leaner and faster, more optimized. But I want to know from you, psychologically, what happens to human beings when institutions begin focusing on that rush towards efficiency rather than focusing heavily on emotional intelligence and psychological safety?
So that's a great question.
Yeah.
I actually think that in a lot of the conversations about AI, what we are missing is actually the real revolution that's happening. Mm-hmm. So everyone is, of course, talking about the AI revolution, but if we look at the three meta trends, the first is AI. The second is that there are looming mental health issues. The World Health Organization, for example, tells us that by 2030, depression will be the single leading cause of disability globally, outstripping cancer, outstripping heart disease. So what this means is that organizations that have traditionally seen issues around people's psychology, and the psychology of leadership as being peripheral, it's now very much front and center. And then the third thing that's happening is that there is, of course, not only AI transformation, but transformation in many different domains of organizations.
Yes.
And so I actually think that the real headline is not that we are in an AI revolution, but actually that we are in a human skills revolution.
Okay, talk to me about
Yes.
that. Go ahead.
So what I'm meaning here is, if we step back and we say it is human beings that are dealing with this context, what are the human capacities that are needed? And very quickly, you land up at all of the types of skills that have been named by LinkedIn as beyond, as the skills for 2030.
Yes.
And it's easy for us to just put it in a little list. But most organizations are truly woefully underprepared for these skills. So they are capacities like collaboration, compassion, because it's hard to human right now, and because self and other compassion actually enables adaptation and growth and thriving. It's abilities like courage, the courage to move forward even when you don't actually know what the path is. It's the ability to be grounded in yourself, in your values, and for you to do that with your team even when you don't know the answers.
Right.
So these are emotional agility capacities. And these, I think, are the most foundational skills of today and tomorrow. Because here's the truth. Firstly, strategy doesn't create the future.
Yeah.
People do.
Right.
Okay?
Yes.
People create the future.
People have to execute the strategy.
People are creating the future. And as AI commoditizes human knowledge, so AI is commoditizing human knowledge, traditional expertise, what I know, I've got the answers. AI is commoditizing that. So the foundational capacities are actually going to be these human skills. So that's why I say we are, I believe, actually in a human skills revolution.
Wow, that's actually, I think, is something that's such a technically simple concept. And I say that with, very loosely, because it's such a simple concept, but so hard for organizations to really thoroughly understand and adopt. you get organizations, like I said, rushing to be leaner and more efficient, but forgetting the human side of the equation is way more important than the technology that they could ever own.
Can I tell you why I think it's so difficult for organizations?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is because if we think about most leadership and organizational models that exist in the world today,
Yeah.
pretty much all of them have been brokered out of the Industrial Revolution,
Mm.
meaning that there has been this pervasive belief that if we put something on the machine on one end
Right.
and we get something out on the other end,
Yeah.
that's what counts.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So what has happened systematically is that all of these capacities that I'm talking about have systematically been considered soft.
Yeah.
They've been
Soft skills.
the end
Yeah.
point, when we do everything else, that's what happens.
Yeah.
But for example, if you look at the research on successful organizational transformation, and you say, what is the single biggest predictor of successful organizational transformation? It's not about the communication. It's not about the strategy. Not to say those things don't matter, but it's not about those things. The single biggest predictor is, did the leader support the emotional journey of people? And this comes up time and time again, but unfortunately what's happened over decades is there has been this belief that these other things are peripheral. Well, I don't believe they've ever been peripheral, but if there's ever going to be a time where they are not peripheral, it's now. It's now.
Right. Yeah. It's often an afterthought. It reminds me of something I read in Simon Sinek's book, Leaders Eat Last.
Yeah.
He talks about the concept of psychological safety, which is so inherent to organizations. So you talk a lot about emotional agility. That's your concept that you honed. What does that look like in practice in this AI era where, people often feel a lack of psychological safety and feeling that they can easily be replaced? What does emotional agility look like for them?
Yeah, well, firstly, emotional agility includes psychological safety, but also goes way beyond it.
Right.
I see emotional agility as a foundational skill set that basically enables people to be healthy in a changing world and cultures to be healthy in a changing world. So the predictable response that happens when there are three contextual factors. The contextual factors are ambiguity, uncertainty, and complexity. Okay. When there is ambiguity, uncertainty, and complexity, which in the example that you described of like people fearing and worried, those three factors, literally from an evolutionary perspective, lead to what we call cognitive narrowing.
Right.
So cognitive narrowing is, if you think about the perception of the body that I'm under threat, cognitive narrowing leads people to walk in the world in a way that's focusing in on the threat, because from an evolutionary perspective, we're trying to protect ourselves. So how's that showing up in organizations? How's that showing up in society and communities? We are seeing it all around us. Examples, polarization. Okay, because when I'm under threat, I'm putting things in boxes like yes, safe, no, okay.
Yeah.
So we're seeing it in polarization, in black and white thinking, in silos, in collapse nuance. When your listeners hear, when you hear in an organization people using tired, worn phrases like they're just resistant to change. People are on the bus or off the bus. We've done that before.
Yeah,
all of these are examples. Okay, so this is cognitive narrowing, and it stops people from being able to be agile in a world in which the context is changing and you need to be agile. So what is happening is there's this profound paradox, which is that the context of change demands that we are grounded and open and courageous and compassionate and connected, okay? That we are seeing what's going on and we are able to walk forward.
Yes.
That's the context. The paradox that happens is that the same context that demands all of those qualities also undermines them, because it leads to this cognitive narrowing. So this is emotional agility. Emotional agility are core capacities that are foundational. And the reason I say foundational is because they impact on culture and on well-being and on leadership. They're foundational skills. And they're things like, firstly, what I call acceptance. And what I know that sounds, when I say acceptance, people are like, well, what do you mean by? So by acceptance, I don't mean passive resignation.
Okay, right.
What I mean is that the moment is asking that we really get in touch with reality. Okay? That we get in touch with reality. That we're not operating from well, we don't do this, or like, we couldn't do this, or like,
Right.
that we actually get in touch with reality. So what does that look like? It's like when you walk outside and it's raining, not being in touch with reality is just ignoring it and like,
Yeah.
just going through your day. Not being in touch with reality is getting stuck inside the experience of like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it's raining just on the day that I've got. Okay, that's
Yeah,
okay.
I do that a lot.
Being in touch with reality
Yeah.
is, it's raining. What do I need to do? Now, let's think about this in terms of people's psychology. Often what I see in organizations is leaders in organizations spend a huge amount of time trying to police people's emotion. Okay?
Yes.
You happy, you need to be happy, you need to be on the bus, you either with a change, you're against. So we spend a lot of time trying to police what people feel. Weirdly, when we police what people feel, we actually undermine psychological safety. We undermine people's ability to bring their emotional truth, the reality, into the workplace. And so we actually stop the organization's ability to be effective. So there are a number of capacities, but one of them, for example, is really profoundly starting to move away from the idea that there are good and bad emotions, that there are ways that people should feel and ways that people shouldn't feel, and that, we've got to always hustle with this.
Right.
Instead, when people feel that they are able to bring their emotional truth to the workplace, leaders and organizations are able to use that effectively in order to help thriving and capacity. So I'll give you an example of what I mean here. Imagine someone is being negative.
Right.
Okay? In the non-acceptance of reality and in the hustling with emotions, we might say, this person's negative, they need to leave, they're disengaged,
Yes.
okay. So there are a couple of things that are incorrect with us psychologically. Number one, the person who complains is not disengaged. The person who complains still cares enough to complain, okay?
That's the interesting perspective.
Yeah. when you're in a relationship
Yes.
where like the person literally doesn't care, that's disengagement. When a person cares enough to complain, they actually are looking for opportunities to engage.
Right.
Okay? So that's the first thing.
It's just not in the way that you want.
It's not in the way that you want. Coming back to this idea of policing.
Yeah,
okay?
right.
So instead of thinking about emotions are good or bad, they shouldn't be feeling those, whatever. If we instead think about emotions are data, okay? Emotions are data. Emotions signpost people's needs and values, okay?
Right.
So the leader who says, what is the need or value that is behind this person being negative? You might well find that the need or value is, I'm bored and I care about learning and growth.
Right.
Or I'm complaining about the impact of this on the customer because I actually care about the customer.
Yeah.
So the leader who gets stuck in, the person's feeling this and they shouldn't be feeling this, instead of the leader going, what need or value is being signaled here? And how can we have a conversation that moves towards that need or value? That's someone who you see is in touch with reality.
Yeah.
They're not avoiding it. They're not getting stuck in it. Oh my goodness, why is it raining? I don't want it to rain. Instead, what they're doing is they're saying, it's raining. How can I take this reality and move into it? So there are many examples. There are many different capacities. But really, emotional agility is the ability to be with what is in ways that are curious, tell me more, let me understand what's going on here, in ways that are compassionate, because it's hard for the leader to human, and it's hard for the other person to human and the team to human, and courageous. Like, we're walking into a future where someone is saying, jump off the cliff, even though your wings aren't ready.
Right. Yeah.
And that takes courage. These are emotional capacities.
What you've just described right there, especially when it comes to a leader's response to what they would perceive as negative emotions, I feel like it's encapsulated in one word or two words, let's say, emotional intelligence, right? And there's plenty of reports that have come out which say that emotional intelligence is the number one leadership skill. Matter of fact, even to take it further, the number one skill required in organizations. And you can see why, like even more than AI skills. Would you agree with that?
I would, with a caveat,
Okay.
which is that I did my PhD nerd on emotional intelligence.
Okay.
And emotional intelligence is the general way that people problem solve with and about emotions.
Right.
Okay. So it's like, how's someone feeling? What's going on? It's like that ability. And emotional intelligence, in popular views, is often perceived as it's about emotional control.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's about emotional control. Another aspect of emotional intelligence is that it specifically and intentionally doesn't bring values into the equation. Okay,
Right.
so it's how you're feeling, emotional literacy, etc. Emotional agility really moves a lot of these capacities way beyond that. In that, firstly, what we are really doing here, what I'm doing here in my work, is I'm saying emotions, it's not about emotions being good or bad and therefore needing to be controlled. What I find far more useful is recognizing that emotions are functional, okay, meaning they're not good or bad inherently. Rather, all emotions, have evolved to help human beings to calibrate and adjust in the face of change. Okay, so they are functional.
Right.
So I often, when I'm working with leaders and they come and they say to me, my team is angry. An example might be angry. Okay. And I've had a leader that I worked with along these lines where he would say, my team's angry. So emotional literacy, you might say, well, you keep using the word angry. My team's angry and my wife's angry and everyone's angry. Okay,
That's a very loose term.
It's all angry. So this is this black and white thinking that I spoke about earlier. What are two other options here? Okay. And the leader who gets more granular, or the human who gets more granular and who says, what I'm saying is angry is actually, they don't trust me.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you can see your psychological posture when you walk into a meeting and your team is angry is going to be the posture of defensiveness.
Yes, of course.
Is going to be the posture of agenda. Okay, what's on our agenda? We just got to get through it.
Yeah.
The psychological posture, when my team is mistrusting and is looking to build trust, is now walking into the meeting looking to build trust and less focused on the agenda, much more focused on the objective. What am I in this meeting for?
Yeah.
So that's the emotional granularity. Like, that's one piece of emotional agility. But another, connecting with this idea of emotions as being functional, is if you're a leader, if you're listening now, if you think about your own difficult emotional experiences or those in your team or those in transformation, ask yourselves this question: WTF? And I don't mean what to believe. Okay, I don't mean what to believe. What I mean here is, what's the function?
Okay.
What is the function of the emotion? What is the emotion signposting? What is the emotion signposting about the needs or the values here? And that allows me to move away from this idea of, it's good or bad, or it's wrong or it's right, or they shouldn't be feeling this, and instead move into the space of, how can we name the need or the value, bring that into the room again, honesty, when we bring it into the room, psychological safety happens.
Yes.
And how do we then move forward?
Yeah, you've said so many things and so many nuggets here, which we could have this interview for hours.
We could have thousands,
right?
Thousands.
But two things come to mind. First thing comes to mind is when it comes to thinking about WTF is such a memorable acronym, by the way. I'm not going to forget that. And I can confidently say that in Slack and people are not going to, when it comes to thinking about the function behind the emotion, we can even take it a step further and say, what if an employee, we think about capability issues and behavior issues at work. What if an employee has, we're not sure if it's a capability or a behavior issue, but they're underperforming at work.
Yeah.
And naturally we jump to, if they keep doing it, they need to be fired, need to be put on a PIP or whatever. Thinking about what's the function, we can even take it further and say, what's behind this? It's showing empathy and compassion. What's behind this? Yeah, they're not performing. They're probably turning up late for work, or they're underperforming on their KPIs. What's the function behind this?
Yes. And from a psychological perspective, really what starts to happen is we can start seeing particular behaviors. And remember earlier when I said compassion, curiosity, and you probably were like, oh my God, we've heard this. But here's what I mean, okay? Now, imagine I've been in many workplaces where there's huge amounts of compassion, okay? Huge amounts of compassion. And the culture of that organization ends up being avoidant because we have this very high level of, I see this person, I'm connected with this person,
right.
I don't want to hurt this person. Therefore, I'm going to avoid this difficult conversation.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah.
Then, so imagine you have like very high index on compassion, but no courage. You're likely to have avoidance.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, imagine you've got a context in which there's very high courage, but very low compassion.
Yeah.
What you find in those organizations is people very often operating from fear. It's almost this like zone of over-asserting.
Yes.
So these things need to come together. And the other thing I want to say as leaders, as listeners, hear me say, emotions have a function. And I say emotions are data, they're probably like, but what if the person's dragging down the team? Or what if the person, okay, so I think this is really important. Emotions are data, they're not directives, okay?
Wow.
So the fact that I feel upset doesn't mean that I get to act with impunity in the organization.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a line that gets
there's absolutely a line, and there's a discernment that is important. So we can I've got this best friend that I love, that I've been best friends with since we were 3, and I love her and I honor her and we're compassionate towards each other and we kind, and it doesn't mean that I listen to everything she tells me.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can honor and see something without it being directives to action.
And condoning the action.
Yeah. And I think one of the, if you kind of said to me, what is something that we are over indexing in organizations right now that I think is something that like sounds good, but is actually undermining organizational and human capability. I think that there's been so much language that's focused on authenticity, vulnerability, and the idea that if I feel something, it's being conflated with I feel it, therefore I need to express it. Okay?
Right.
Because I feel something, because I feel something about this policy, or because I need to express it. But this is massively, massively risky and massively unwise, and actually undermines resilience and capability in organizations. And I'll give you this quick metaphor in case it's helpful, is, when you go into restaurants where they cook the meal in front of you, okay? It's very authentic.
Yeah.
Okay? There's like this window into what's happening in the restaurant.
Yes.
And it's authentic, and it feels much more authentic than, for example, going to a 5-star,
Yeah.
20-course meal
Yeah.
with all of your silverware. Okay, there's something that feels
Yes.
closer and more authentic. But there is a reason that they show you that window of the chef cooking, and they don't show you the rats running around, the piles of dirty
course.
dishes, the potato peelings. That's
Right.
also authentic,
Yeah.
but it's too much.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
too much. And I think what started to happen is in the languaging of feeling our feelings, we've moved into the space of conflating, I feel it, therefore everything goes.
Right.
And we're seeing this on social media, and we're seeing it beyond. And this is the way that I'm thinking about it. I think that vulnerability is really, really important, because vulnerability or authenticity, they're slightly different concepts, but they are social disclosure, and vulnerability and authenticity are social glue. They connect us. They
Yeah.
create cohesion.
For sure.
They
Rapport.
facilitate relationships and rapport. Okay. However, when we, as individuals or in organizations, are operating from the place of wound, okay, meaning I feel this thing, I'm going through this change, I disagree with it, it's tough, and we're operating from a place of wound.
Yeah.
What it's actually doing is it is putting you in a situation where, imagine you're on social media and you're like sitting in your car crying about the thing that's going on for you.
Yeah.
You can see that what you're doing is you're being very vulnerable, but actually what you're also doing is you're outsourcing your emotional processing
Right.
to viewers.
Yes.
Okay.
I see that a lot.
What
Yeah.
they say, what they comment
Yeah.
is actually then going to impact on your emotional processing.
Yes.
So when we're operating from wound, what we are often doing is we're outsourcing our emotion processing, and it actually undermines us.
Right.
What we are also doing in organizations is we are creating the onus on leaders, on the rest of the team, to be holders of our psychology.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're
Whereas
right.
the leaders, like, they're not psychologists. And it's, so there's this very,
Yeah.
I'm seeing it happen a lot in organizations. So how I think about this is wounds are things that we take to our psychologist, our coach.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's high contextual trust there.
Yeah.
And it's a different thing. So what does this look like in leadership? Leaders, I believe, and healthy organizations, I believe, are much more operating from the place of scars. Okay? Example, I went through this change before. Oh, I've gone through something. This is what I've learned. This is what I don't understand. But this is like the insights that I've got.
Right.
That's very different than the person going like, oh my goodness, we all in this. This is the change.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just being vulnerable with you. So my daughter said something to me the other day that I loved, and I'll share with you in case it's she was saying she's very responsible, and she's highly empathetic, and she did something that I disagreed with. Okay. And I said to her, Sophie, I've got an issue with this.
Yeah.
I've like got a real issue with this. And I was like going on and on and on about my issue.
Right.
And she looked at me and she said to me, Mommy, you're right. You've got an issue. And it's an issue, not an me.
Wow. Okay.
And you need to deal with it.
Wow.
Okay.
That was a teaching moment.
Okay. And I was like, and she said it very kindly, very, very compassionately, with curiosity,
right.
and with courage, bringing these things together.
Yeah.
I think this is really important.
Yeah.
There's a lot of speaking about boundaries in organizations. Boundaries can often read as avoidance.
Yeah.
Okay. And at the same time, it's really important in healthy organizations, in healthy leadership, that we know what's an issue and what's an ishme.
Yeah, got it, yeah.
And that like not everything needs to be the kitchen.
Yeah.
That and the reason I raise this is because I'm seeing a shift. And if we are really talking about capacity in organizations and capacity in leaders,
Yeah.
and capacity in culture, capacity is held firstly by agency, by human agency, not by outsourcing our agency to everyone.
Yeah.
And capacity in organizations is held by emotional self-holding. And that is, you know, we can have all these things written on our culture statement and our values frameworks, we can have all these things.
Yeah.
But like ultimately, the ability to be integrated and with integrity in culture and values depends on learnable, practical, and powerful psychological capacities. Because again, strategy doesn't create the future. People do.
Yeah. So many valuable nuggets from this conversation. I've got a one-liner for you. Well, I want you to give me a one-liner.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So to wrap this up, we know that this year has seen unprecedented layoffs, especially in tech, right? And going back to the question I asked at the beginning about organizational change and how people manage their emotions during these times. Today, specifically, May 20th, Meta made the decision to lay off 8,000 employees. They announced it a few weeks ago. It's happening today. People are waking up or, you know, going into work to find out they've been axed. Not just Meta, there are other organizations that are rumored to have layoffs in the coming months as well. What would be your one line of advice to employees who have been facing these layoffs, and one line of advice that you would give to the leaders left behind who have to deal with the chaos that ensues, you know, in the aftermath? So kind of two lines.
Well, one line plus, well, so I struggle with one lines. I've got one lines, but I need a bit of context, okay? I need a bit of context. The context that I have for the person who's suffering, okay, is, you know, when you go to a restaurant and you see a little child running away from its parents in the restaurant, and it like runs away and it looks back to make sure that its parents' caregivers are still there. And then what does it do? It doesn't go back to the table. It like runs even further and goes to the fryer. So what is the child doing? What the child is doing is what John Bowlby, the psychologist, called the secure base. It's the knowledge that the child has that if something goes wrong, my parents or caregivers will be able to step in. It's that knowledge that enables me to do the work of the child, okay? To be curious, to fall and get up, to be courageous, to do all of those things, okay? So think about this notion turned inwards. This is what I mean when I talk about self-compassion. It's the idea that like it's hard to human right now. Like it just is. It's hard to human.
Yeah, for sure.
So having your own back, just when you wake up and you're having a hard moment or a hard day, and being in the space of like, I've got me. I've got me. Is profoundly important. Self-compassion is the antidote to shame. And even when people have not bought on any of this, there's often a lot of shame that gets enveloped. So self-compassion, I would say, so the one line is, I would say self-compassion is the antidote to shame. You've got a 5, and then the 2 and 3 lines, you've got a 5-year-old tugging on you, just saying, see me. And you've also got an 8-year-old saying, you're coming my way. You know, an 8-year-old version of you. So I think this idea of self-compassion for leaders, I'll say something different, which is, I know a lot of leaders are also finding that it's very hard to human right now.
For sure.
And a really good litmus that I use in my work is asking the question of, is this workable? And really what I mean here is, if I took a behavior, whether that's an organizational behavior, cultural behavior, or one of my leadership behaviors, if I took a behavior and I multiplied it 1,000 times across all contexts,
Right.
is it getting me closer to being the leader and the human being that I want to be? The reason I say this is because when we experience change and disruption, often what it does is it evokes that cognitive narrowing.
Right, yes.
And so then leaders start avoiding conversations or shutting down or going in with the agenda, like I mentioned earlier. Whereas just asking, when you're trying to say, who do I want to be right now? The idea of workability is really, really important. So we spoke about boundaries earlier. Sometimes boundaries are really important. And sometimes boundaries are avoidance.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
How do you know the difference? You know the difference because if you ask yourself, if I keep avoiding this conversation time and time and time and time and time and time again, 1,000 times across all different contexts, does it get me closer to being the person that I want to be? If the answer is no, that behavior is not workable.
Right.
It's showing you that it's avoidance.
Right.
So I think this is really important because what it allows leaders to do is to say, this thing that I'm saying of how I need to react and be in this moment might feel comfortable, but is it workable?
Right.
And if it's not workable, see if you can find in yourself your compassion for the moment, your compassion for the other, your courage, and your walking forward.
Yes. Well, absolute amazing takeaway. We can talk for ages, but thank you so much. And for those of you who enjoyed today's podcast, feel free to like, comment, rate this episode, share it with your co-workers, with your teams, and I'll see you in the next episode of Work 2.0 on the road for Work 2.0, the podcast.
Thank you.